Hello, my name is Tara Brabazon and I'm the Professor of Education and the Head of the School of Teacher Education at Charles Sturt University, and we have campuses in both Australia and in Canada. But that's not what I'm talking about today. Today this is my third instalment, my third vodcast in the University of Pennsylvania MOOC, Old Globe. And the question that my colleagues have given me to answer this week is, what is an ageing society? There are really two major ways in which I could answer that question. The first one really is a political and a socio-cultural reality, and that is when you have an ageing society, there must be a redistribution of resources. So with all the best politics in the world, we have to recognise that wherever the bulk of the population are actually located, that's where the resources should be. So of course that's a shift in resources in health, but it's also a shift in resources in education as well. So the attention perhaps to early childhood education, to primary and perhaps secondary education will shift in an ageing society. And attention will go to lifelong learning and the retraining of populations so they continue to work in a new environment. So I would say, what is an ageing society? It is a society that looks at its demography in the eye, if you will, and makes concrete and often quite unpopular decisions about how resources are distributed and redistributed. Now that's one answer, but there's actually a second answer I'd like to give you. And when I think about the question, what is an ageing society, I think of it as a society that is more culturally complex. Let me explain what I mean. The man who is holding this camera at the moment his name is Professor Steve Redhead. He also happens to be my husband. But earlier on in his career, he invented and dealt with a concept called post-youth culture in his books Rave Off and End of the Century Party. And he had one particular interpretation of that post-youth culture. He argued that pop time is cyclical and not linear. So that means when we're thinking about popular culture, it's not one damn thing after another, it actually loops and enfolds. So if you think about it, popular memory is like that. Old popular culture is never dead. It lives in our present and transforms. So what I'd like us all to think about in this ageing society is we sort of have to realise that all of our post-youth cultures circulates and they live and they breathe in our present. So we have to think about culture and popular culture in a much more complicated way in an ageing society. And if I can carry that argument through in terms of digitisation, let me present a hypothesis to you. The Pew Internet and American Life Research Centre have instigated longitudinal studies of the online environment, certainly since I've been working on it in the late 1990s. And what they've discovered recently is that the generational differences in online use is actually reducing. So that means in the old days we used to say, oh yes, digital natives, and oh yes, old people are not online. Actually, the inverse is now occurring. The generational differences between the inverted commas young and the inverted commas old is actually reducing. So for example, we think of, oh yes, the young people are on Facebook. Well, the average age of Facebook users is 37. It is a post-youth culture. And perhaps the artefact that I would deploy for this week to think about the nature of an ageing society as a collection of post-youth cultures is to just explore this object in my hands. This, of course, is an iPod, a big one. It has 22,000 sonic resources on it from all sorts of ages of popular culture. We've got bebop, we've got the big band era, we've got rap, we've even got a fair amount of Lady Gaga. But ladies and gentlemen, all these different sonic resources from the last 80, 90 years, Leadbelly to Justin Bieber, all circulate on this tiny little object. So through digitisation, we start to think about our ageing society in a new way. And we realise that age not only means different things, but it travels through popular culture and popular memory in really interesting ways. Thanks so much for a chance to talk about this great topic. What is an ageing society? It's certainly culturally complex. Cheers. See you next week.